would guide me to discover the properties of the I Ching. What to make of the ocean of resonances that the time charts seem to show, connecting every moment of time to every other through a scheme of connection that knew nothing of randomness or causality? And what to make of the way that the chart and the fact of my discovering it seem to imply that the time in which we live was the focus of an ages-long and terribly important effort? These were inflationary images, and I recognized them as such, but the power and allure of them as a form of private entertainment was frankly irresistible. But more important than the central role the chart assigned to the time in which we live, and more puzzling than its personal idiosyncratic side, was the fact that, implicit in the structure of the chart, was an end of time, or a period when a transition of regime would take place that would transform the modalities of reality completely. I was familiar with the idea of eschatologies in a religious context, but it had never before occurred to me that regimes in physics might undergo sudden shifts that would reshuffle natural laws. There is nothing against it, really. It is simply that science, in order to function, must assume that physical laws are not context-dependent on the time in which they are tested. If this were not so, the idea of experiment would have no meaning, since experiments performed at different times might then give different results. Yet the theory that was nightly invading my dreams during those months, and that I was busy elaborating nearly every waking minute, was a theory of unseen parameters operating in time. Parameters symbolized by the hexagrams of the I Ching, but parameters that mold the possibilities offered by the laws of physics and chemistry into the actual realized world that is the integration of the potential possibilities into actual events. It is possible that, in a certain sense, all these states of liberation are nothing more than perfect knowledge of the contents of eternity. That if one knows what is contained in time, from its beginning to its end, you are somehow no longer in time. Even though you still have a body and still eat and do what you do, you have discovered something which liberates you into a kind of all-at-onceness which is very satisfying. There are other satisfactions that arise out of the theory that are not touched on in this formulation. Times are related to each other. Things happen for a reason, and the reason is not a causal reason. It is a reason which in physical terms is a quantum mechanical phenomenon. There is a wave which conditions events on all levels, and this wave is expressed throughout the universe on a number of extremely different, discrete levels. It causes atoms to be atoms, and cells to be cells, minds to be minds, and stars to be stars. In a certain sense, it is a kind of physics, but it is metaphysics with mathematical rigor. What I propose is not a belief in the sense of a religious conviction. It is a scientific proposition. Anyone is welcome to dismantle it. This is in fact what I have attempted to do. Years after I left the Amazon, I continued to elaborate this theory and to clarify my own understanding of the theory-forming enterprise generally. I succeeded finally in 1974 in completely mathematizing the I Ching time graphs. This made it possible to greatly refine the ideas of what constituted proof or disconfirmation of what the theory contended. My conclusion today on these matters is that the theory of the variable and cyclical nature of novelty's ingression into the world is a truly self-consistent and completely mathematical theory. It is true to itself. It has not been possible to find a bridge between it and normal physics. Such a bridge may be neither possible nor necessary. We may find that normal science indicates what is possible, while the time theory I propose offers an explanation for what is. It is a theory which seeks to explain how, of the things that are possible, some events and things undergo the formality of actually occurring. Therefore, the theory cannot be disproven from without. It can only be disproven by being found inconsistent within itself. Until the I Ching graph was quantified, its way of integrating seemingly meaningless and unrelated factors made it a thing very easy to become psychologically entangled with. Even after the 16th of November 71 came and went with very little shift toward the novel, either in my life or in the world, I continued to propagate the cycles of the chart forward into the future, looking for a date that seemed to have features related to the chart, and thus that would be a good candidate for the emergence of a special event. Here is a part of my story that I find most puzzling. After the disconfirmation of November 1971, I looked at other future dates on which the 384-day cycles would end if I continued to assume that the 16th of November 71 was the end of one such cycle. That meant that the next ending date of the 384-day cycle would be the 4th of December 1972. I consulted several astronomical tables, but the date seemed unpromising. The closing date of the next 384-day cycles was immediately more interesting, as it fell on the 22nd of December 1973. I noticed this was the winter solstice. Here was a clue. The winter solstice is traditionally the time of the rebirth of the Savior Messiah. It is a time of pause when there is a shifting of the cosmic machinery. It is also the time of the transition of the sun from Sagittarius to Capricorn. I put no particular stock in astrology, but noted that Dennis is a Sagittarius and Eve a Capricorn. I consulted my star maps and added another coincidence, that where the ecliptic crosses the cusp of Sagittarius and Capricorn at 23 degrees Sagittarius is the very spot to within 1 or 2 degrees where the galactic center is presently located. Over 26,000 years, the galactic center, like all points on the ecliptic, slowly moves through the signs, but now it is on the cusp of Sagittarius and Capricorn on the winter solstice day. This seemed an unusual number of coincidences, and so I pressed my search. Consultation with the almanac of the Naval Observatory brought a real surprise. On the very day that I was searching, 22 December 1973, a total annular eclipse of the sun would occur, and the path of totality would sweep directly across La Chorrera and the Amazon basin. I was dumbfounded. I felt like a person in an eerie novel. This string of clues was actually real. I researched the